Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Come thou day spring from on high, and cheer us by thy drawing nigh. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night, and death's dark shadow put to flight. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. O come, desire of nations find, in one the hearts of all mankind. Bid thou our sad division cease, and be thyself a King of peace. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel.
Three candles burning bright, chasing away the darkness from light. 3 candles glowing bright, the blessing of God giving you sight.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning for Sacred Space. This is our weekly worship service in the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Michigan, and so we welcome those of you from our communities around the Upper Peninsula, as well as our friends who join us each week from other places. We are really glad to have you here with us today. Our preacher this week is David Carlisle, who is one of our new missioners, and he serves in Ironwood and Iron River and Calumet. And we are so excited that David is part of our team and are glad for you to hear his message this morning. A couple of announcements. Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be joining us for part of our worship service on Sunday, December 27th. So the Sunday right after Christmas, she will be hopping online live with us to give us a greeting and to worship with us for a brief amount of time. And we are grateful that her office reached out to us and asked for this opportunity. So please join us. It will be a different way of connecting that morning. We will stream on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, but if you would like to join us as part of the service through Zoom, we will get that information out too. On Christmas Eve, we will be having a service of vigil, Christmas Eve vigil, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Same service, it'll just stream twice so that you can join us for that premiere either time works for you. And it will involve folks from all across the diocese participating in that service. So please join us on Christmas Eve. Please join us on the 27th. And also thank you to everyone who sent in Christmas carols. I am working on putting that video together, and we'll post it as soon as it's ready, and we can have fun singing along to one another, being goofy and offering beautiful songs as well. So let's go ahead and pray this week's collect. So this is Advent week 3. Lord of light, who sent the Baptist to offer hope and face the world's scorn, open our ears to hear the cries from the margins, exposing our fears, inciting our vision, and calling us to a step of faith. Through Jesus Christ, the one who is to come. Amen.
Upon thy church once more and make it truly thine. Fill it with love and joy and power, with righteousness and peace, till Christ shall dwell in human hearts and sin and sorrow cease. Blow wind of God with wisdom, blow until our minds are free from mist of error, clouds of doubt which blind our eyes to thee. Burn with fire, inspire our lips with flaming love and zeal, to preach to all thy great good news, God's glorious commonweal. Teach us to utter living words of truth which all may hear, the language all may understand when love speaks loud and clear, till every age and race and clime shall blend their creeds in one, and earth shall form one family by whom thy will is done. So shall we know the power of Christ, who came this world to save. So shall we rise with him to life which soars beyond the grave, and earth shall win true holiness, which makes thy children whole, till perfected by thee we reach creation's glorious goal, till Christ shall dwell in human hearts and sin and sorrow cease.
A reading from the Gospel of John. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the testimony given by John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "Well, what then? Are you Elijah?" And he said, "I am not." "Are you a prophet?" He answered, "No." Then they said to him, "Well, who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" He said, "I am the voice of the one crying out from the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord.' As the prophet Isaiah said. Now they had been sent from the Pharisees, so they asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you are neither the Messiah, nor Elijah, or a prophet?" And John answered them, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal. This took place in Bethany across the Jordan where John was baptizing. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
Who are you? Who are you? That is the question that this delegation sent to John the Baptist asks him, not once, but several times. Who are you? It might seem a simple or ordinary question, but that's only because we're so used to it that we never reflect on its strangeness. And I'll illustrate this with one of the most uncomfortable experiences, most uncomfortable examples of this sort of self-identification question I've ever experienced. I used to go pretty often to academic conferences. Thousands of people from across the continent, a few of them even from across the globe, would all converge on one hotel for several days and would deliver a packed program of talks on their research. They still do this. I just don't go to them anymore. And behind the scenes at these conferences, there will be a nearly constant stream of job interviews happening in the hotel rooms of various faculty on search committees who have been sent there to narrow down a slate of 10 or 12 candidates to just 3 or 4 who they think are worth inviting to campus for a final interview before making a hiring decision. So many of those attending, certainly when I was there, many of us there were there primarily for this, a situation which is called being on the market, which I find to be a rather icky term used by academics to mean actively seeking a new or different faculty position. So when you register at these conferences, you get a tag that says your name and what university or college you're affiliated with. And in theory, it's supposed to make it so people don't have to ask the question or answer the question, who are you? But it still gets asked. And so in response, people will sometimes hold up their name tag as if they're saying, look, here's my label. Now you know who I am. The most awkward moments, though, often came, and I assume still come at these conferences, in elevators. So there's always elevators in constant use, ferrying thousands of people from their 15th floor suites or 40th floor suites down to the conference rooms or the bar and back. And as people would step into the elevator, they would always look at the name tags of those who are already there. This is such a familiar thing that we even had a name for. We just called it the look, or sometimes the elevator look. So you see their eyes go down to your chest where the name tag is, and then come back up. And when people would do this, they would always look at these name tags to see if they recognized the name and valued the work of the person wearing the name tag. And if they did, then they might introduce themselves and make small talk while the elevator ascended or descended. If they didn't recognize the name, then they would look up again and fix their face into that classic blank elevator face, you know, the one that says, I know there's another human being in this tiny moving room with me, but I just want to get where I'm going with minimal entanglement in social interaction. So let's both pretend we happen to have a blind spot exactly where the other person is, and that we just don't notice each other's presence. Perhaps the most disheartening of all was when you were already sharing the elevator with someone else, and then another person got on and did the name tag check on you both, and then introduced themselves to the other person while completely ignoring you. It happened all the time, and it was one of the most efficient ways of being told at this conference, this person matters and you don't. So that experience sums up for me what the question, who are you, is too often about in our society, and how we too often respond to it. We hear it as another form of the question, why do you matter? Our ego, the I that wants desperately to be valued, to be needed, to be important, what some philosophers call the false self, that thing that lives inside of us jumps to answer the question, who are you, by doing what shame researcher Brene Brown calls hustling for our worthiness. We give answers designed to show why we matter, why we should be valued, why someone should care about us. And a job interview may be one of the most stark examples of this, but we do it all the time in so many interactions. Think about meeting someone at a party. What might they ask you? They may ask, what do you do? Which is something our ego hears as, what is your value to society? Or they might ask, how do you know Joan, the host? Which we hear as, I know and value Joan, who invited us both to this party, presumably. Tell me your connection to her so I can decide whether I should value you as well. And these are just variations on the way we hear, who are you, as, why do you matter? What is your value? In its most insidious form, who are you is the question we ask ourselves when we are afraid to take a risk. Then it can take the form, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Brene Brown tells us that this is one of the two tapes that shame plays in our head, together with the one that goes, not good enough. And these two together are powerful weapons used by shame to keep us from being vulnerable, which is to say, to keep us from showing our true selves. We end up hearing the question, who are you, as, what is your value? And then we struggle to find the answer that will make the world affirm that value. And when we find it, we conform ourselves to it. This is exactly the opposite of beginning from self-knowledge and self-awareness, and then honestly and authentically revealing who we have learned ourselves to be. And I think right now, the reason that this matters more than ever is that it's adding a lot to the stress so many of us are feeling in the midst of this pandemic, and to our resistance to adapt to its needs and demands. If you think about it, the pandemic has forced us to change all of the behaviors by which we normally seek to have our value affirmed. Our interactions with other people are dramatically different. Our workplaces and jobs are dramatically different if we've even kept them. Our ability to hug, to shake hands, to offer and receive an encouraging touch that tells us, that can tell us better than any words that we are loved and valued and accepted. All of this has changed. And so the more we based our sense of worth and value on the affirmations of others, on the work we do and the relationships we have, and we all of us base at least some of our self-worth on these things, the more our sense of self-worth has been shaken up by this year's struggle. The more we base it on those things, the more the changes in those things have shaken our own sense of self-worth. In today's gospel, John the Baptist offers us a way to confront this challenge, though. And when I explain this way, as I see it, it may seem like a strange way at first, maybe even a little nihilistic. But I think that if you bear with me and stay open to it, you will find it exactly the opposite. Not nihilistic at all, but a deeply reassuring way to confront the present struggle. So let's consider John the Baptist. Notice how he answers the delegation sent out to find out who he is. At first, he doesn't say who he is at all, only who he is not. I am not the Messiah. he says. He refuses to play that game of, let me puff myself up and tell you things that I think will get your approval. So the delegation then offers him two more impressive roles that he might claim to play this game. Are you Elijah? No, he says, but he doesn't offer any further answer. Are you the prophet? No, he says again, saying nothing more. Finally, they, perhaps in frustration, say, well, we need an answer. What do you affirm about yourself? What do you claim about yourself? Essentially saying, play the game, man. Who are you? Tell us something to impress us. So now he has to give some sort of answer. So he quotes Isaiah. And this quote is usually translated, I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. But it's actually written, I am a voice of one crying out in the wilderness. And this is important because it stresses that John is not claiming to be the anything, Messiah, Elijah, prophet, voice. Instead, to the question, what do you say about yourself? He says, here's what I'm doing right now. Now, at this point, the delegation is truly unimpressed, and they ask what they think is the obvious question. Then why are you baptizing? In effect, what gives you the right? Who are you to baptize people? It's a shaming question, a question designed to say, since you have refused to prove your worthiness to us, why should we believe that you are worthy to do something as important as baptize? Why do you get this job? And his answer is not to say, hey, listen, don't you know who I am? I'm the son of Zechariah and Elizabeth, respected members of this community. He doesn't say, God has commissioned me for this great work. Who are you to question that? His answer doesn't try to argue, I am worthy at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. He explicitly says, I am not worthy. I am not worthy to untie the thong of the sandal of the Messiah. So in response to their final demand that he hustle for worthiness, he responds with deep humility. And that, I think, is what this time of pandemic is calling for from us. Humility. Now, humility is a tricky word in our culture. And I think it's because our culture has, in fact, attached it to shame. Shame, which Brown defines as the fear that we are not worthy. We're afraid of humility because we think being humble means groveling and saying, I am not worthy. In fact, though, true humility liberates us. It liberates us to do the opposite, to let go of the hustle for worthiness and to embrace our true worth. And it does this because our true worth is something totally unrelated to all the things we measure, we collect and use to measure our value. It's something given to us from God, and it is imperishable. And this is true for each and every one of us, no matter what we've done. You are worthy. You are precious, not because of anything you have done or anything special or unique about you, but because God has chosen to create you and to endow you with infinite worth. God is expressed in you in a way that God is not expressed anywhere else at any other time. Now, the catch is that to embrace this, you have to let go of the idea that your worth is somehow something you earn or acquire through your own efforts. And believe me, I know that's hard. I am certainly not there yet. But it is a worthwhile undertaking, I think. As Sister Joan Chittister writes, quote, accepting our basic smallness and embracing it frees us from the need to lie, even to ourselves, about our frailties. More than that, it liberates us to respect, revere, and deal gently with others who have been unfortunate enough to have their own smallnesses come obscenely to light. Brown would call this wholehearted living, which comes from a refusal to listen to shame, from giving up the hustle for worthiness, and instead accepting and having compassion on our weakness, on our vulnerability, and on that of others. Elsewhere in her commentary, Sister Joan sums the idea up this way, drawing on the wisdom of the Jewish tradition. Each of us should have two pockets, the rabbis teach. In one should be the message, I am dust and ashes. And in the other, we should have written, for me, the universe was made. This is the balance of humility, to accept our profound worthiness and preciousness as being nothing we have to prove, because it is not of our doing, but God's, without whom we are but dust and ashes. It is a difficult balance, I know. I am certainly nowhere near it yet. But I think striving for it might just be the thing that is best able to get us through the days ahead.
Why have you forsaken us? Where have you gone? Why have you forsaken us? How can we go on? There's a woman who has lost her child, and a man who's lost his way. There's a boy who's keeping it inside, and a girl who cannot pray. Why have you forsaken us? Where have you gone? Why have you forsaken us? How can we go on? We search for your face, search for your grace. We want to follow your way. Why have you forsaken us? Where have you gone? There's a man forsaken on a cross, body broken in two. There's a God hanging on a cross who feels it all too. Crying with us, dying with us, praying with us, holding us too. Crying with us, dying with us, praying with us, holding us too. Crying with us, dying with us, praying with us, holding us too. We search for your face, search for your grace. We want to follow your